The alien visitor. Zork had always been fascinated by the stars. As a young explorer from the planet Silo, he had spent countless cycles studying distant planets and the strange creatures that lived there. But no species had ever intrigued him more than the humans of Earth. They were unpredictable, emotional, and to Zork, utterly fascinating. So when the Galactic Council gave him permission to visit Earth for research, Zork didn't hesitate. His sleek, silver spaceship landed silently in a remote forest under the cover of night. Zork activated his cloaking device and stepped out into the crisp Earth air. His alien form, tall and shimmering with blue scales, would surely frighten the locals. He adjusted his translator device and activated a holographic disguise, taking the form of a young human man with short brown hair and an unassuming smile. The next morning, Zork made his way into a bustling city. It was unlike anything he had seen before. Cars honking, people rushing, and colorful signs flashing everywhere. Overwhelmed but determined, Zork decided to start his research in a place humans seemed to gather often: the park. As he strolled through the park, pretending to admire the flowers, Zork's sensitive ears picked up an interesting conversation. A couple sitting on a bench were talking excitedly about their plans for the future. "I can't believe we're finally doing it," the woman said, her face glowing with happiness. "Me neither," the man replied. "Having a baby is such a big step." Zork froze. His translator quickly processed the words, but they didn't make much sense to him. "Having a baby," he whispered to himself. His species reproduced by merging their energy fields. Simple and efficient. But humans, they seemed to have a completely different process. Intrigued, Zork moved closer, pretending to tie his shoe while listening intently. The couple continued talking about cribs, baby clothes, and something called pregnancy. Zork was baffled. "What is this? Pregnancy?" he thought. "Do they grow their offspring like plants? Or is it something else entirely?" He couldn't resist the urge to know more. His translator had picked up bits of human language during his journey, and he decided to test it. "Excuse me," he said, approaching the couple with a polite smile. "I couldn't help but overhear. You are having a baby. Can you explain?" The couple exchanged amused glances. "Yeah, we're starting a family," the man said. "It's exciting, but also a little scary." Zork nodded, though he didn't fully understand. "And this process, how does it work?" he asked, tilting his head in genuine curiosity. The woman laughed nervously. "Well, it's complicated. You know, two people love each other, and then, well, nature takes its course." Zork frowned. "Nature takes its course. That is very vague. Can you elaborate?" The couple laughed again, assuming he was joking. "Don't worry," the man said. "You'll figure it out someday." They got up to leave, waving goodbye as they walked away. Zork was left standing there, more confused than ever. "Figure it out," he muttered. "What am I supposed to figure out?" Determined to solve the mystery, Zork decided to gather more information. He spent the rest of the day observing humans, listening to their conversations, and even sneaking peeks at their devices. But everything he found only added to his confusion. Some humans talked about love, others about science, and some mentioned something called the birds and the bees, which made no sense at all. By evening, Zork was back in his spaceship, deep in thought. He sat in his glowing control room, reviewing the data he had collected. "Humans are so secretive about this," he said aloud. "Why won't they explain their reproduction process clearly?" Suddenly, his ship's AI spoke up. "Zork, perhaps you are overcomplicating this. The answer may be simpler than you think." "Simple?" Zork replied. "Nothing about humans is simple." The AI remained silent, leaving Zork to ponder his next move. He decided he needed a new approach. "If I can't get the answers by observation," he said to himself, "I will ask directly. Someone will tell me. They must." Zork activated his holographic disguise again and stepped out into the night. This time, he was more determined than ever. He would uncover the truth about human reproduction, no matter how strange or complicated it turned out to be. Little did he know, his quest for answers would lead to misunderstandings, laughter, and an adventure he would never forget. As he walked through the city, Zork couldn't help but smile to himself. Earth was full of mysteries, and he was ready to solve them one by one. But first, he needed to figure out this baby thing. It was, after all, the key to understanding what made humans so unique and so fascinating. Misunderstanding begins. Zork's research had barely begun, yet he was already consumed by the mystery of human reproduction. The vague explanations from the couple in the park only fueled his determination to uncover the truth. His translator recorded every word they had said: love, nature, family. But these terms didn't connect to any logical reproduction method Zork knew. Humans were clearly hiding something. Determined to blend in and gather more data, Zork decided to embed himself among the humans. His holographic disguise was perfect, and he adopted the role of the friendly new neighbor. He rented a small apartment on the edge of the city, using galactic credits that his AI had converted into Earth currency. The building was old and creaky, but its communal atmosphere gave Zork access to dozens of potential subjects to study. A curious start. On his first day, Zork introduced himself to his neighbors. He knocked on doors, carrying a tray of cookies he had synthesized after scanning human recipe databases. "Greetings, I am Zork. No, I mean John. I just moved in. Would you like a cookie?" Most humans smiled warmly at his awkward introduction, and some even invited him in for tea or coffee. Zork took careful note of their behaviors, how they spoke, how they laughed, how they interacted. But despite hours of casual conversations, no one mentioned reproduction. That evening, Zork sat in his apartment, frustrated. "Humans are unusually reserved about this subject," he muttered. "Perhaps I need to ask more directly." Online adventures. To supplement his in-person research, Zork decided to explore the vast network of human knowledge, the Internet. Using a borrowed laptop, he typed "How do humans reproduce" into a search engine. The results were overwhelming. Videos, articles, and diagrams flooded the screen. Zork clicked on one titled "The Miracle of Life," expecting a scientific breakdown. But the slow, dramatic narration and emotional music confused him. What is this emotional attachment to biology? He wondered aloud. He clicked on another video, hoping for clarity, but it turned out to be a tutorial on growing tomatoes. Are humans comparing their offspring to plants? Zork muttered, baffled. The search algorithm, now thoroughly confused by his viewing habits, began recommending everything from cooking shows to dance tutorials. Hours later, Zork leaned back in his chair, his holographic face twisted in confusion. "This is impossible," he exclaimed. "Even their informational networks are designed to obscure the truth." The bold question. The next day, Zork decided to escalate his approach. If humans wouldn't explain reproduction willingly, he would have to confront them directly. Spotting a group of young adults chatting outside a cafe, Zork walked up with his best approximation of a friendly human smile. "Good day," he said, his tone slightly too enthusiastic. "May I ask you a question about human biology?" The group exchanged puzzled looks. Sure," one of them replied hesitantly. Zork leaned in conspiratorially. "How does human reproduction work?" There was a moment of stunned silence, followed by nervous laughter. Wow, that's a bold question," said one of the young men, scratching the back of his head. Zork nodded eagerly. "Yes, it is bold. But I am a very curious scientist. Please, explain it to me in detail." One of the women smirked. "You're joking, right?" Zork tilted his head. "I assure you, I am quite serious." The group erupted into laughter. "Man, you've got some nerve," one of them said, slapping Zork on the back. "Just Google it, dude." Frustrated but undeterred, Zork pressed on. I have tried your Google. It is insufficient. Surely, someone here can give a proper explanation. The group laughed even harder, mistaking Zork's persistence for a bizarre sense of humor. They waved him off as they walked away, still chuckling about the weird guy they'd just met. An unexpected revelation. Back in his apartment, Zork reviewed the encounter with his eye. Humans seem to treat this subject as a joke, he said, pacing the room. But their reactions suggest it is also deeply personal. Why? Perhaps, the AI suggested, you should observe their interactions more closely. Social rituals may provide the answers you seek. Zork nodded thoughtfully. You're right. If direct questioning fails, I will focus on observation. Humans reveal much in their behavior. That evening, Zork positioned himself in a local cafe with a notebook, pretending to write while discreetly listening to the conversations around him. He noticed how humans interacted, how they laughed, flirted, and touched each other. The concept of love seemed to be an essential part of the process, but its connection to reproduction remained unclear. The spark of curiosity. Then he overheard a young couple at the table next to him. I just found out I'm pregnant, the woman said excitedly, showing her partner a small stick with 2 pink lines on it. Zork's eyes widened. Pregnant, he whispered, his translator quickly defining the word, a condition related to reproduction. He leaned in a little too close, startling the couple. Excuse me, he said urgently. Did you say you are pregnant? Please, tell me more. The couple stared at him, bewildered. Oh, it's kind of private, the man said, pulling his chair back slightly. But I must understand, Zork exclaimed. It is vital to my research. Dude, back off, the man snapped, grabbing his partner's hand and walking away quickly. Zork slumped in his seat, defeated. Humans are so secretive, he muttered. Why must this process be hidden? As he watched the couple leave, Zork's determination only grew stronger. He would uncover the truth, no matter how many awkward encounters it took. His research was just beginning, and the mysteries of human reproduction would not remain mysteries for long. The bold question. Zork had always prided himself on being a dedicated researcher. Back on his home planet of Silo, he had solved complex mysteries about alien ecosystems and deciphered ancient languages. Yet here on Earth, the puzzle of human reproduction was proving to be his greatest challenge. After days of careful observation, awkward conversations, and a deep dive into the internet's chaotic archives, Zork still couldn't make sense of it. Humans talked about love, pregnancy, and family in ways that felt more emotional than practical. To Zork, this was strange. Reproduction, at its core, should have been simple biology. But humans made it seem messy. Sitting in his cramped apartment, Zork decided he had had enough of subtleties. I must take direct action, he declared, pacing back and forth. If humans won't explain this process willingly, I'll ask someone who cannot avoid the question. The encounter. The next morning, Zork ventured back to the park where he had first overheard the couple discussing babies. Dressed in his holographic disguise, he carried a notebook and pen, hoping to appear like a diligent researcher. As he scanned the area, he spotted the same couple sitting on a blanket under a large oak tree, laughing and sipping from steaming cups. This is my chance, Zork thought, straightening his posture. I must approach them with precision and confidence. He walked briskly toward the couple, his human smile set firmly in place. Excuse me, he said, standing awkwardly close to their picnic blanket. The couple looked up, startled but polite. Hi, the man said, squinting at Zork. We've met before, Zork continued. I was the one who asked about babies. The woman's eyes widened. Oh, right. You were curious. Yes, Zork exclaimed, sitting cross-legged on the edge of their blanket without invitation. I still am. I've been trying to understand human reproduction, but I have found your species to be evasive. The man chuckled nervously. Look, dude, it's kind of a personal topic. But why? Zork asked, tilting his head. On my planet, reproduction is discussed openly. It is a natural process, not a secretive ritual. The woman stifled a laugh. It's not that it's secretive. It's just, private. Zork frowned. Private? That is highly inefficient. How do you educate your young about the process if it is private? The couple exchanged awkward glances. The man cleared his throat. Well, there are, books and stuff. Maybe you should try reading one. Zork pulled out his notebook. Excellent suggestion. What book would you recommend? The woman giggled. I think you need, like, a biology textbook or something. Biology textbook, Zork repeated, scribbling furiously. And this will explain everything. Most of it, the man said, clearly trying to end the conversation. Zork's pen paused mid-scribble. Most? What is omitted? Is there a sacred text humans use for the full explanation? The couple burst into laughter. A sacred text, the woman repeated, wiping her eyes. No, man, it's not like that. Just ask someone else. Okay. The bold question. As the couple packed up their picnic, Zork felt a growing frustration. Humans seemed determined to dance around the subject, giving him only fragments of the truth. But Zork was not one to give up. Later that day, he decided to try again. Wandering through the bustling streets of the city, he spotted a small cafe filled with chatty patrons. Surely, among so many humans, someone would be willing to explain reproduction in detail. He walked inside, his holographic form blending seamlessly with the crowd. Spotting a group of young adults laughing at a corner table, Zork approached with confidence. Greetings, he said, pulling up a chair without waiting for an invitation. The group stopped talking, their eyes fixed on him. Hi. One of them said cautiously. I am conducting research, Zork began, placing his notebook on the table. I need to understand the process of human reproduction. Can you explain it to me? There was a stunned silence. Then one of the women snorted with laughter. Wait, what? Are you serious? Entirely serious, Zork replied, his expression earnest. The group exchanged amused glances. Bro, that's not really something you just ask people, said one of the men, smirking. Why not? Zork asked. Is it forbidden? Is there a cultural taboo I have violated? The table erupted into laughter. Dude, you're killing me, said another man, clutching his stomach. This has to be some kind of prank. It is not a prank, Zork said, frowning. I am conducting legitimate scientific research. Please, I require detailed answers. One of the women patted his shoulder. Look, buddy, there are certain things you gotta figure out on your own, okay? But why? Zork asked, genuinely confused. The group laughed even harder. Good luck, man, one of them said as they gathered their things and left. A new approach. Sitting alone at the cafe table, Zork stared at his untouched coffee. This is getting me nowhere, he muttered. Humans are not only inefficient, they are evasive to the point of absurdity. His eyes voice chimed in through his earpiece. Perhaps you should attempt a more subtle strategy. Observation has yielded results before. Zork sighed. Fine. If they will not tell me, I will simply watch. Somewhere, somehow, the truth will reveal itself. With renewed determination, Zork began scanning the cafe for new subjects to observe. Little did he know, his quest for answers was about to lead him into a series of hilarious misunderstandings and awkward encounters that would test his patience and his disguise to the limit. The revelation. Zork sat cross-legged in his spaceship, surrounded by holographic screens filled with fragmented data about human reproduction. Despite weeks of observation and questioning, the process remained a riddle wrapped in layers of metaphor and secrecy. He rubbed his temple, a very human gesture he had picked up recently, and sighed. Enough of this nonsense, he muttered. If humans refuse to explain, I'll force them to show me. His AI chimed in. Zork, perhaps it's time to reconsider your approach. You've attempted observation and inquiry. Maybe it's time to admit you need assistance. Assistance. Zork frowned. From whom? From the very humans you wish to study, the AI replied. But this time, instead of asking strangers, try a more cooperative approach. Earn their trust. Build a relationship. Zork paused, considering the suggestion. Very well. But if this fails, I'll have no choice but to scan their minds. He hesitated. Humans have exceptionally loud thoughts. That would be unpleasant. An unexpected invitation. Determined to try the AI's advice, Zork returned to the park where he had first encountered the couple who spoke about having a baby. Spotting them, sitting on their favorite bench, he took a deep breath, adjusted his holographic disguise, and approached with a nervous smile. Hello again, he called out, waving. The couple looked up, surprised but not unkind. Oh, it's you, the man said. The curious guy. Yes, that's me, Zork replied cheerfully. I've been thinking about our previous conversation, and I realized I may have approached the topic in an inappropriate manner. I'd like to apologize. The woman raised an eyebrow. Well, that's nice of you to say. To make amends, Zork continued, I'd like to buy you a cup of coffee. I have more questions, but I promise they will be far less invasive. The couple exchanged glances, clearly hesitant. What do you think? The woman asked. The man shrugged. He seems harmless, and honestly, kind of funny. All right, the woman said, smiling, but only if you promise to tone down the awkward questions. Zork nodded eagerly. Agreed. The biology lesson. Over steaming mugs of coffee at a quiet cafe, Zork listened intently as the couple began explaining human reproduction in the simplest terms they could manage. Well, the woman started. It all begins when two people fall in love, or at least care about each other a lot. Love, Zork interrupted, scribbling in his notebook. A recurring theme. Go on. The man chuckled. Right. So when two people decide they want a baby, they, engage in an intimate act. That's where the biology comes in. Intimate act. Zork tilted his head. What does this entail? The couple exchanged uncomfortable glances. It's complicated, the woman said. But let's just say it involves both people contributing their DNA to create a new life. Fascinating, Zork exclaimed. And this is done through direct physical interaction. Yeah, the man replied, visibly uncomfortable. Something like that. Zork's eyes lit up as he scribbled furiously in his notebook. This explains so much. The secrecy, the privacy. This act must require extraordinary coordination and trust. The couple burst into laughter, unable to contain themselves. Yeah, you could say that, the woman said, wiping her eyes. Zork, oblivious to their amusement, continued asking questions. And this process results in pregnancy, correct? A temporary state where the offspring develops within the parent. Yes, exactly, the woman said, impressed by his sudden grasp of the concept. Zork leaned back, a satisfied smile on his face. Incredible. Your species' method is far more intricate than I imagined. On my planet, reproduction is a simple energy exchange. Efficient, but lacking the depth your method appears to have. The couple stared at him, confused. Wait, what? The man asked. What do you mean, on your planet? The truth revealed. Realizing his slip, Zork panicked for a moment before deciding honesty might work in his favor. Well, I may not be entirely human. The couple laughed nervously, assuming it was a joke. Good one, the man said. You had us going for a second. I am not joking, Zork said earnestly, deactivating his holographic disguise. Before them now sat his true form, tall, shimmering, and undeniably alien. The couple froze, their eyes wide with shock. Holy, are you serious? The woman whispered. "Quite serious," Zork replied calmly. "I am Zork, an explorer from the planet Tylo. My mission is to understand your species, particularly your reproduction. I mean no harm." The couple sat in stunned silence, their coffee forgotten. Finally, the man spoke. "This is insane." "Not insane," Zork corrected. "Merely improbable." The woman shook her head, trying to process what she was seeing. "Why are you so interested in reproduction, though?" "Because it is central to your species' existence," Zork explained. "And yet you guard its secrets as if they are sacred. I have never encountered a species that treats reproduction with such complexity." The couple exchanged another look. "Well," the man said finally, "if you're serious about learning, we can help. But you have to promise not to scare anyone else with your questions." Zork's face lit up with gratitude. "You would do this for me? I am deeply honored." The start of understanding. As the couple began to share more about human relationships and the emotional bonds tied to reproduction, Zork realized he was not just learning about biology. He was uncovering the very essence of what it meant to be human. For the first time in his journey, he felt a connection to these strange, fascinating creatures. And as he listened, he couldn't help but wonder, what other secrets did humanity hold? Experimentation. The small spaceship hidden deep in the forest hummed softly as Zork paced its main chamber, surrounded by holographic projections of human anatomy and biology. The couple's explanation had provided valuable insight into human reproduction, but for Zork, mere understanding wasn't enough. "I must experience this process myself," Zork declared, his voice filled with determination. "How can I truly understand the complexity of human reproduction without testing it firsthand?" His AI assistant, a calm and logical voice emanating from the ship's central console, interrupted his thoughts. "Zork, I must remind you that direct experimentation on humans would violate galactic research protocols. This is highly unethical." "I have no intention of experimenting on humans," Zork replied. "I will recreate the process in a controlled environment using simulations and holographic projections." The AI hesitated. "You intend to replicate human reproduction artificially?" "Precisely," Zork said, nodding with enthusiasm. "I will combine the data I've gathered with my own observations to simulate the entire process." "Your data is incomplete," the AI cautioned. "The results may be unpredictable." Zork waved a hand dismissively. "Nonsense. Humans have managed this for millennia. How difficult could it be?" The first attempt. Zork began constructing his simulation. Using advanced holographic technology, he created a virtual environment modeled after a human home, complete with a nursery filled with soft toys and a crib. "Step 1, Zork muttered, referencing his notebook. "Combine genetic material." Simple enough. He loaded synthesized DNA samples into the simulation, expecting immediate results. Instead, the holographic display fizzled and sputtered, producing an amorphous blob that floated aimlessly in the air. "This doesn't look right," Zork said, frowning. The blob made a loud, wet noise before popping like a soap bubble. "Analysis suggests a miscalculation in the DNA integration process," the AI said dryly. "Obviously," Zork snapped. "Begin recalibration." Escalating chaos. Undeterred, Zork refined his approach, adding more data and tweaking the simulation's parameters. This time, the hologram produced a vaguely humanoid figure, but it was alarmingly disproportionate, with one arm longer than its entire body and a head that glowed like a beacon. Zork stepped back, both horrified and fascinated. Is this normal for human development?" "Highly unlikely," the AI replied. "I suggest reviewing the data again." The holographic figure stumbled forward, emitting strange noises that sounded like a mix of laughter and crying. It reached out toward Zork with its elongated arm, causing him to yelp and shut down the simulation immediately. "This is far more complicated than anticipated," Zork admitted, rubbing his temples. a malfunction with consequences. As Zork worked tirelessly to perfect his experiment, his spaceship began to show signs of strain. The advanced systems, not designed for prolonged holographic simulations, started glitching. Lights flickered, panels buzzed, and the ship's cloaking field weakened briefly, exposing it to anyone nearby. Unbeknownst to Zork, one of his neighbors, a curious young boy named Max, had ventured into the forest that day. Spotting the shimmering spaceship, Max froze in awe. That's not a car," he whispered to himself. Meanwhile, inside the ship, Zork launched his third simulation. This time, the holographic projection resembled a human infant, albeit one that glowed faintly blue and floated 2 feet above the ground. "Success!" Zork exclaimed, clapping his hands. "I have recreated the human reproduction process." The infant began to cry, a loud, piercing wail that sent Zork into a panic. "What is this sound? Is it malfunctioning?" "Crying is a natural part of infant behavior," the AI explained. "It is how humans communicate distress." Distress? What could it possibly be distressed about? It was just created. Zork frantically adjusted the controls, trying to soothe the holographic baby. Instead, he accidentally amplified its crying, which echoed through the ship and into the forest. Max, still standing outside, heard the strange sound and crept closer, his curiosity outweighing his fear. The neighbor arrives. As Zork tried to calm the simulated baby, an alert flashed on his console. Warning: cloaking field compromised. Unauthorized life form detected nearby. What? Zork spun around, his holographic disguise still active. Who is it? The AI brought up a visual feed, revealing Max standing just outside the ship, staring in awe at the faintly glowing hull. "A human child," the AI said. "Shall I activate the security protocols?" "No, wait," Zork said, quickly deactivating the holographic infant. He adjusted his disguise to appear less threatening and opened the ship's hatch. Max stumbled backward as Zork stepped outside, his human form smiling nervously. "Hello there," Zork said, raising a hand in what he hoped was a friendly gesture. "Lovely day, isn't it?" Max blinked up at him, wide-eyed. "Are you an alien?" "What? No," Zork said, laughing awkwardly. "Why would you think that?" Max pointed at the ship. "Because that's not a house." Zork glanced back at the spaceship, silently cursing the malfunctioning cloaking field. "Ah, well, you see, it's a very advanced mobile research facility." "For what?" Max asked, his curiosity growing. Zork hesitated, then decided on partial honesty. "Human biology. Very important research." Max tilted his head. "Like babies." Zork's jaw dropped. "How did you know?" "My mom talks about babies all the time," Max said with a shrug. "She says they're a lot of work." Zork sighed, leaning against the ship. "You have no idea." A new perspective. As Max peppered him with questions, Zork realized the boy's curiosity mirrored his own. For the first time, he saw humans not as a puzzle to be solved, but as individuals with unique perspectives. Perhaps, Zork thought, I've been approaching this the wrong way. Understanding humans might require more than simulations. It might require connection. Smiling at Max, Zork said, "How about I tell you a little about my research, and you tell me about humans?" "Deal," Max said eagerly. "But can I see the inside of your spaceship?" Zork hesitated, then nodded. "Only if you promise not to touch anything." As the two disappeared into the ship, Zork couldn't help but feel he was finally on the right path, one that combined curiosity with genuine understanding. And perhaps, through this strange friendship, he would uncover more about humanity than he ever expected. Cultural exchange. Zork stared at the glowing holographic infant floating in his spaceship's simulation chamber. Despite weeks of experiments, his understanding of human reproduction remained incomplete. The simulated baby was anatomically correct, but emotionally perplexing. Its constant crying, unpredictable laughter, and occasional burbling made no sense to him. Humans invest significant energy in this process. Zork muttered to himself. Why? It is inefficient, illogical, and emotionally exhausting. His AI assistant, who had been silently observing Zork's struggles, finally spoke. Perhaps the answer lies not in biology, but in culture. Human reproduction is closely tied to their social and emotional structures. Zork tilted his head. Culture? You mean their strange rituals and unnecessary complexities? Precisely, the AI replied. To understand their reproduction, you must also understand their relationships, traditions, and emotions. This cannot be done in isolation. Zork sighed, rubbing his temples. So, you're saying I need to interact with humans again? That would be the logical next step. As Zork considered this, his ship's proximity alarm blared. He rushed to the control panel, pulling up a live feed of the area outside. To his surprise, it was the human couple he had met earlier, the same ones who had inadvertently introduced him to the mystery of reproduction. They've returned, Zork said, his voice tinged with curiosity. But why? The unexpected visit. The couple stood outside Zork's cloaked spaceship, looking around nervously. The man was holding a small brown paper bag, and the woman clutched a thermos of coffee. Do you think he's home? The woman whispered. I don't know, the man replied. But if he is, we can't just leave him out here, confused about, well, everything. It's kind of our fault he's so obsessed with reproduction. Zork deactivated the cloaking field and stepped out, his holographic disguise intact. Greetings, he said, his smile a little too wide. To what do I owe the honor of your visit? The couple jumped, startled by his sudden appearance. We brought you some coffee and snacks, the woman said, holding up the thermos and bag. We figured you might have more questions, and we wanted to help. Zork's eyes lit up. You wish to assist with my research. Excellent. Please, come inside. The couple exchanged uneasy glances, but followed Zork into the ship. As they stepped into the glowing interior, their jaws dropped. This isn't an RV, the man said, his voice trembling. What is this place? Zork hesitated for a moment, then deactivated his holographic disguise. The couple gasped as his true form shimmered into view. Tall, blue-scaled, and undeniably alien. You're an alien. The woman stammered. Yes, Zork said calmly. I am Zork, an explorer from the planet Tylo. I mean you no harm. My sole purpose here is to understand your species, particularly your reproductive processes. The man blinked. That's specific. The exchange begins. Once the initial shock wore off, the couple settled into Zork's spaceship's sitting area, sipping the coffee they had brought. Zork, now fully transparent about his research, shared his experiments and simulations with them. The couple was both amused and horrified. You tried to simulate a human baby? The woman asked, staring at the floating holographic infant. Yes, Zork replied proudly. But its behavior remains inconsistent. It cries and laughs unpredictably. Is this normal? The couple burst into laughter. Oh, it's normal, the man said. That's just how babies are. They're messy, emotional, and a lot of work. Zork frowned. But why would your species choose such an inefficient method of reproduction? On my planet, we merge energy fields to create offspring. It is precise, painless, and instantaneous. The couple exchanged intrigued glances. That's efficient, sure, the woman said. But it sounds kind of cold. Human reproduction isn't just about creating life. It's about connection, love, and building a family. Love again, Zork muttered, scribbling in his notebook. You humans place immense emphasis on this concept. Explain its significance. The man leaned back, thinking. Love is hard to explain. It's a feeling, a bond. It's what makes us care for each other and want to raise our kids together." The woman nodded. "It's what makes the chaos worth it." Zork stared at them, his expression unreadable. "So, reproduction is not merely a biological act for your species. It is an emotional and social one as well." "Exactly," the woman said. "It's messy, but it's beautiful." Sharing Cylonian methods. In turn, Zork explained how his species reproduced through energy merging, a process that was purely functional and devoid of emotional involvement. "It is efficient," he said, "but now I see it lacks the complexity and depth of your method." The couple listened intently, fascinated by the stark differences between their species. "It sounds like your process skips over a lot of what makes reproduction special for us," the man said. "Perhaps," Zork admitted, "but it also eliminates conflict, unpredictability, and crying." The couple laughed. "Fair point," the woman said, "but you're missing out on the joy that comes with all that chaos." Zork tilted his head thoughtfully. "Perhaps there is value in imperfection. Your method may be inefficient, but it appears to foster bonds and experiences that transcend the act itself." A new perspective. As the evening wore on, the couple invited Zork to a family gathering, promising it would give him a chance to observe human relationships and traditions firsthand. Zork hesitated but eventually agreed. "Perhaps you are right," Zork said. "If I wish to truly understand your species, I must experience more than just the biological. I must immerse myself in your culture." The woman smiled. "Trust me, Zork. You'll learn more in one evening with my family than in 1,000 simulations." As they left the ship, Zork felt a strange sense of anticipation. For the first time, he realized that his mission wasn't just about solving a mystery. It was about understanding what made humans so wonderfully unique. A new understanding. Zork stood at the edge of a backyard, illuminated by soft string lights. Laughter and the sound of clinking glasses filled the air as humans, so many of them, moved between tables piled high with food. The family gathering was in full swing and Zork, disguised in his human form, felt strangely nervous. "Relax," said Sarah, the woman who had invited him. She nudged his arm gently. "You wanted to learn about humans, right? This is the perfect place." Zork nodded, clutching his notebook tightly. "Indeed, but the sheer number of participants is overwhelming. Do all human gatherings involve such chaos?" Sarah laughed. "You should see a wedding." Zork tilted his head. "A wedding?" "Not now," Sarah said with a grin. "Baby steps, Zork. A crash course in human connections." As Zork mingled with the crowd, he observed humans interacting in ways he had never seen before. There were children chasing each other with sticky fingers, elderly humans exchanging stories, and parents balancing plates of food while keeping an eye on their offspring. Zork found himself drawn to a group of children clustered around a table of desserts. One small boy was trying to balance a cupcake on his head while the others cheered him on. "Why is he placing food on his head?" Zork asked, genuinely baffled. Sarah's younger brother, Jason, who had joined them, chuckled. "It's a game. Humans like to have fun, even when it doesn't make sense." "Fun," Zork repeated, scribbling in his notebook. Another recurring theme. It appears to serve no practical purpose, yet it is highly valued. Jason laughed. "Exactly. Life's not all about practicality, Zork. Sometimes it's about moments like this. The emotional bond." As the evening progressed, Zork found himself seated with Sarah's grandmother, who was cradling a baby in her arms. The infant cooed softly, its tiny hands grasping at the older woman's finger. Zork leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. "May I inquire, why does this small human bring you such visible joy? It is clearly incapable of performing tasks or communicating effectively." The grandmother chuckled, her eyes twinkling. "Oh, sweetheart, it's not about what they can do. It's about what they are. Holding this little one reminds me of all the love and life that's come before and all the possibilities ahead." "Love again," Zork murmured, jotting the word down for what felt like the 100th time. So it is not just an emotion, but a framework, a connection spanning generations. The grandmother smiled. You're getting it, aren't you? Zork hesitated. Perhaps. It is different from anything I have known. An alien perspective. As the evening wound down, Zork shared stories of his own species' methods of reproduction. The gathered humans listened intently, their expressions a mix of fascination and disbelief. So, you don't raise your offspring together? Jason asked, leaning forward. No, Zork explained. Once energy merging is complete, the offspring emerges fully functional and independent. Parental involvement is unnecessary. Sarah frowned. But don't you miss out on the bond? The joy of seeing them grow. The memories you create together. Zork paused, his usual certainty shaken. We do not view reproduction in such terms. It is a means of sustaining our species, nothing more. Sarah's grandmother gently touched his arm. Then maybe that's what makes humans unique. For us, it's not just about survival, it's about connection. A new understanding. As Zork prepared to leave, he felt a strange sensation, a warmth he couldn't quite explain. The humans waved goodbye, their smiles genuine and welcoming. For the first time, Zork felt he was beginning to understand why humans were so invested in their reproduction process. It wasn't just biology. It was love, connection, and the joy of building something greater than themselves. As he stepped back into his ship, Zork recorded his final observations. Humans are inefficient and unpredictable, he dictated, but their reproduction process is not merely about creating life. It is about creating bonds, within families, across generations, and between individuals. It is a reflection of their emotional depth, their need for connection, and their capacity for love. He paused, a small smile forming on his alien face. Perhaps efficiency is overrated. As his ship rose into the sky, Zork found himself looking forward to his next mission on Earth. There was still so much to learn, and for the first time in his long career as an explorer, he was excited, not for the answers, but for the journey.